The massive alien ship hung in Earth's sky like a dark promise of destruction. Ambassador Veltar stepped out of his transport craft onto the landing pad at United Earth headquarters in Geneva. His crystalline skin caught the sunlight and threw it back in sharp angles that hurt human eyes to look at directly. The Zephyrian stood 7 feet tall with 4 arms and a head that seemed too large for his narrow shoulders. His species had ruled over 3,000 star systems for more than 500 years. Captain Jake Morrison watched from the observation deck as the alien delegation moved through the security checkpoint. Jake had spent 15 years in the Earth Defense Force and had seen plenty of strange things in space, but this was his first time meeting one of the galaxy's most feared species. The Zephyrians had destroyed entire civilizations without breaking a sweat. They turned planets into glass and enslaved populations that numbered in the billions. Every species in known space either served them or had been wiped out trying to resist. The council chamber filled with tension as Veltar entered. President Lisa Carter sat at the head of the curved table with representatives from every major Earth nation beside her. The alien moved with fluid grace that seemed unnatural to human eyes. His translator device clicked in Word as it processed human languages. When he spoke, his voice came out flat and emotionless through the machine. "Humans of Earth," Veltar began, "I bring greetings from the Zephyrian Empire and our glorious Emperor Kexthel the Eternal. We have observed your species for many months and have reached a decision about your future." He paused and looked around the room with eyes that glowed like blue stars. "You will surrender your homeworld to our empire within 72 hours. Your people will be relocated to suitable colonies where you will serve the empire's needs. Those who resist will be eliminated. This is not a negotiation." Jake felt his jaw clench. The alien spoke about enslaving humanity like he was discussing the weather. President Carter remained calm as she responded, "Ambassador Veltar, we appreciate you traveling this far to speak with us. However, we must decline your offer. Earth will remain free and independent." The alien's head tilted to one side in what might have been confusion. "You misunderstand the situation. This is not an offer or a request. This is an order from the Zephyrian Empire. We have studied your military capabilities extensively. Your fusion drives are outdated. Your kinetic weapons are primitive. Your defensive systems could not stop a single one of our destroyers. You have no choice but to comply." Jake had to admire the president's composure. She kept her voice steady as she replied, "Ambassador, I believe you misunderstand our situation. We are not interested in surrendering to anyone. Earth stands free." Veltar's forearms moved in what the translation software identified as a gesture of dismissive frustration. "Perhaps you do not comprehend the scale of Zephyrian military power. We have eliminated species far more advanced than yours. The Keltharians had quantum shields and plasma cannons that could crack moons. We destroyed their entire civilization in less than 6 months. The Vorthak Empire controlled 50 star systems and possessed weapons that could manipulate time itself. They lasted 8 months against our fleets." The alien began pacing in front of the assembled human leaders. "Your species has exactly 19 colonies scattered across 12 star systems. Your largest warship masses less than 800,000 tons. Our smallest destroyer masses 3 million tons and carries enough firepower to sterilize a continent. Our warfleet approaching your system contains 300 vessels. Each one could destroy your entire space navy without assistance." Jake noticed that several of the human representatives were shifting uncomfortably in their seats. The numbers Veltar quoted were accurate according to public records. Earth's military did seem hopelessly outmatched by Zephyrian standards. But the alien was making assumptions about human nature that Jake suspected would prove costly. President Carter stood and walked to the large window that showed Earth's blue sky and white clouds. "Ambassador Veltar, your empire may have superior technology and larger ships. You may have conquered thousands of worlds and enslaved billions of beings. But you made one critical error when you came here today. What error could your primitive species possibly identify that the Zephyrian Empire has overlooked?" Veltar asked with obvious contempt. "You assume that having superior firepower means you understand warfare," Carter replied without turning around. "You studied our ships and weapons and military organization. But you never studied what makes humans fight. You never asked why a species that evolved on one small planet developed dozens of different fighting styles and tactical doctrines. You never wondered why we have words like guerrilla warfare and asymmetric tactics and scorched earth policies." Jake saw the aliens, translator working harder as it processed concepts that apparently had no equivalent in Zephyrian language. Veltar remained silent as Carter continued speaking. You conquered species that surrendered when they realized they could not win a direct confrontation. You have never faced an enemy that considers being outnumbered 10 to 1 to be interesting odds rather than hopeless ones. You have never fought beings who would rather die free than live as slaves. The president turned back to face the alien delegation. Ambassador Veltar, please return to your emperor with this message. Earth declines your generous offer to become part of the Zephyrian Empire. We will defend our homeworld and our freedom with everything we have. If your emperor wishes to take Earth, he is welcome to try. Veltar's blue eyes blazed brighter as his translator processed the human response. You choose death over the honor of serving the Empire. Very well. Our war fleet will arrive in 1 week. You will have that long to reconsider your decision and prepare your final surrender. When we return, we will accept nothing less than total submission. As the alien delegation prepared to leave, Jake noticed something interesting. Veltar seemed genuinely puzzled by humanity's response rather than angry. The Zephyrian Empire had apparently never encountered a species that chose resistance over survival. They had built their entire military doctrine around the assumption that overwhelming technological superiority would make actual fighting unnecessary. After the aliens departed, President Carter called an emergency meeting with Earth's military leadership. Jake found himself invited along with Admiral Ben Crawford, Dr. Sarah Mitchell from the Advanced Weapons Division, and Chief Engineer Ryan Torres. As they gathered in the secure conference room, Carter addressed the group with grim determination. Ladies and gentlemen, we have 1 week to prepare for a war against an enemy that has never lost a battle. They outnumber us, outgun us, and have technology we can barely understand. Our only advantages are that they underestimate us completely, and they have never faced an enemy that refuses to quit. She looked around the table at each person present. I need options, and I need them fast. Jake realized that the real war was just beginning. Admiral Ben Crawford had not slept for 36 hours. He stood in the war room deep beneath Geneva headquarters studying holographic displays that showed the positions of every human ship and station across 12 star systems. The man who had retired 3 years ago after 40 years of military service now carried the weight of humanity's survival on his shoulders. President Carter had given him complete authority over Operation Deep Strike, and he intended to use every second of their remaining time. Status report, Crawford said as Captain Jake Morrison entered the secure chamber. Jake carried a tablet loaded with intelligence data that would have seemed impossible to gather just days earlier. The threat of extinction had awakened capabilities in human intelligence networks that even Crawford had not known existed. Sir, we have confirmation that the Zephyrian fleet consists of 300 vessels arranged in standard Imperial formation, Jake reported. Intelligence operative Maria Rodriguez managed to hack their communication relays during the ambassador's visit. The aliens are so confident in their security that they barely encrypted their tactical data. Dr. Sarah Mitchell looked up from her workstation where she had been modifying human weapon systems around the clock. Dark circles under her eyes showed the strain of working without rest, but her voice remained steady and focused. Admiral, I have good news and bad news about their technology. The good news is that Zephyrian shields operate on a frequency that we can disrupt with modifications to our quantum scramblers. The bad news is that even with their shields down, their hull armor is still thick enough to stop most of our weapons. Chief Engineer Ryan Torres spread technical blueprints across the main table. His team had been working in shifts to implement modifications to Earth's entire space fleet. We can solve the armor problem, but not the way anyone expects. Instead of trying to punch through their hulls, we target their weapon systems and engines. A ship that cannot move or shoot is just an expensive piece of space junk. Crawford studied the engineering plans with growing interest. Human military doctrine had always emphasized mobility and precision over raw firepower. Earth ships were smaller and faster than anything the Zephyrians built, but their enemies had never fought an opponent that used speed as a primary weapon. How long do you need to retrofit our fleet? 72 hours for basic modifications, Torres replied. Another 48 for the advanced stealth systems. The Zephyrians have never developed effective sensors for detecting low-emission drives because they rely on massive fusion reactors that light up every scanner within a light year. Maria Rodriguez emerged from her communication station with new intelligence that made everyone in the room pause. The young woman had spent her career infiltrating criminal networks and hostile governments, but breaking into alien computer systems had required skills she developed on the fly. Admiral, I have been monitoring Zephyrian military communications since they left Earth. Their fleet commander is named Krixtal, and he has never lost a battle in 200 years of service. That sounds like bad news, Jake said. Actually, it might be good news, Maria continued. Krixtal has never lost because he has never faced real resistance. Every species he conquered surrendered after his first attack. The Zephyrian military has no experience with prolonged warfare or adaptive enemies. They have battle plans but no contingency strategies. Dr. Mitchell activated a holographic display showing the layout of a typical Zephyrian destroyer. Her analysis revealed weaknesses that the aliens themselves probably did not realize existed. Their ships are built for intimidation and overwhelming firepower. They have massive energy weapons but relatively few point defense systems. They expect enemies to maintain formation and fight according to predictable patterns. Crawford began to see the outline of a strategy that might give humanity a chance. What about their communications and coordination systems? Highly centralized, Maria answered immediately. Everything flows through command ships that coordinate fleet movements. If we can take out their command structure, their individual ships will have trouble working together effectively. Torres pointed to his engineering modifications with growing excitement. Sir, we can use that against them. Human ships equipped with stealth modifications can get close enough to target their command vessels before they know we are there. Once we disrupt their coordination, their numerical advantage becomes less important. The Admiral walked to the large display showing Earth's defensive positions. Most military experts would see only 18 aging destroyers and 43 smaller vessels facing an enemy force that outmassed them by more than 10 to 1. Crawford saw something different. He saw ships crewed by humans who had been preparing for this kind of fight their entire evolutionary history. Ladies and gentlemen, we are going to do something that the Zephyrians have never encountered, Crawford announced. We are going to make them fight for every meter of space. Every engagement will cost them more than they expect. Every victory will teach us something new about their weaknesses. By the time this war ends, they will wish they had never heard of Earth. Dr. Mitchell began downloading her weapon modifications to manufacturing facilities across the solar system. Human industrial capacity had shifted overnight from producing consumer goods to creating instruments of war. Factories that built cars and computers now turned out missile guidance systems and armor plating. Admiral, the quantum scramblers will be ready for installation within 12 hours. We can also modify our communication arrays to jam Zephyrian coordination frequencies. Jake studied the tactical plans taking shape on the display screens. Sir, what about our colonies? The Zephyrians will probably attack our outer settlements first to test our response. That is exactly what we want them to do, Crawford replied. Colonel Martinez on New Texas and Commander Williams on Frontier Station have been implementing Protocol Omega for the past 3 days. Our colonies are not going to be helpless targets waiting for rescue. Torres brought up schematics showing modifications to colonial defense systems. Every settlement now has hidden weapon caches and communication relays that can coordinate resistance activities. The Zephyrians think they are attacking isolated outposts. Instead, they will be walking into carefully prepared kill zones. Maria Rodriguez received another intelligence update that changed the entire strategic picture. Admiral, I have been tracking Zephyrian supply lines. Their fleet carries enough provisions for a 6-month campaign, but their logistics system assumes they will capture intact human facilities to resupply their forces. Then we make sure they capture nothing intact, Crawford said with grim satisfaction. Every facility they take will be stripped or destroyed before they arrive. Every victory will cost them resources they cannot replace. The war room buzzed with activity as dozens of staff members coordinated the most complex military operation in human history. Officers who had trained for years to fight pirates and smugglers now planned battles against an interstellar empire. Scientists who had spent their careers developing peaceful technologies now weaponized every system they could imagine. Crawford looked around the room at the faces of people who would determine humanity's fate. None of them had asked for this responsibility, but all of them had accepted it without hesitation. The Zephyrians had made their first major error by giving humans time to prepare. They would soon discover that their second major error had been declaring war on the deadliest species in the galaxy. Fleet Commander Krixtal watched the blue planet grow larger on his command screen as the Zephyrian warfleet approached Earth's solar system. 300 vessels moved in perfect formation behind his flagship, each one capable of destroying entire cities with a single volley. The crystalline alien had conquered 47 star systems during his 2 centuries of military service, and every campaign had ended the same way. The enemy would see the overwhelming power of the Zephyrian fleet and surrender immediately to avoid total destruction. "Commander, we are detecting no defensive formations around the human homeworld," reported his tactical officer. "Their space fleet appears to have fled the system entirely." Krixtal felt satisfied but not surprised by this development. The humans had clearly realized the hopelessness of their situation and abandoned any pretense of resistance. Perhaps their leaders had finally come to their senses and would offer complete surrender when his fleet reached their planet. "Maintain standard approach pattern. Begin scanning for human vessels hiding behind their moon or asteroid fields." Captain Jake Morrison floated in zero gravity inside the cramped cockpit of his modified fighter craft. The stealth modifications made his ship nearly invisible to Zephyrian sensors, but they also required him to shut down most of his life support systems. 43 other human pilots waited in similar conditions throughout the debris field near Earth's moon. Their ships looked like destroyed wreckage to alien scanners, but each one carried enough firepower to cripple a Zephyrian destroyer. "All units, this is Defiant Leader," Morrison whispered into his communication system. "Enemy fleet is approaching optimal ambush range. Weapons are armed and targeting solutions are locked. Remember, we hit their command ships first, then their engine sections. Make every shot count because we will not get a second chance." Dr. Sarah Mitchell monitored the battle preparations from her position aboard the hidden command vessel Determination. Her quantum scramblers were ready to disrupt Zephyrian shields on Jake's signal. The past week of modifications had turned every human ship into a precisely tuned weapon designed to exploit alien weaknesses that the enemy did not even know they possessed. Chief Engineer Ryan Torres checked his stealth systems one final time as his ship drifted among the fake debris. The Zephyrians had passed within 1,000 meters of his position without detecting anything unusual. Their sensors were designed to locate massive energy signatures from conventional military vessels, not the low-emission drives that Torres had developed specifically for this ambush. Krixtal studied the tactical display, showing the positions of his fleet as they moved deeper into the human solar system. Everything proceeded according to standard Imperial doctrine. His heavy destroyers formed the center of the formation, while lighter cruisers protected the flanks. Support vessels followed behind with troops and occupation equipment, ready to take control of human facilities after the inevitable surrender. "Commander, we are receiving a transmission from the human homeworld," his communication officer announced. "Put it on the main screen," Krixtal ordered. He expected to see human leaders begging for mercy and offering unconditional surrender. Instead, the image showed Admiral Ben Crawford standing on the bridge of what appeared to be an ancient human warship. "Fleet Commander Krixtal, this is Admiral Crawford of the Earth Defense Force," the human said with calm determination. "You have entered our star system with hostile intent and refused our diplomatic efforts to resolve this situation peacefully. As of this moment, your fleet is trespassing in sovereign human territory. You have 10 minutes to withdraw beyond the orbit of our outermost planet, or we will consider your presence an act of war." Krixtal felt his forearms twitch with amusement. The audacity of these primitive beings never ceased to surprise him. "Human Admiral, your pathetic fleet has fled this system in terror. You have no military assets capable of threatening even one of our destroyers. Surrender now or watch your homeworld burn." "Commander, we gave you fair warning," Crawford replied. "Defiant Leader, you are cleared to engage." Morrison activated his targeting systems and felt his fighter come alive with deadly purpose. Around him, dozens of other human pilots did the same as their carefully planned ambush began. "All units weapons free. Take them down." The space around Earth's moon suddenly erupted with weapons fire as 44 human fighters revealed themselves and attacked the Zephyrian fleet. Krixtal watched in shock as his sensors finally detected the hidden enemy vessels, but by then it was too late to avoid the ambush. The humans had positioned themselves perfectly to target his command ships, while avoiding the heaviest defensive fire. Dr. Mitchell activated her quantum scramblers, and Zephyrian shields began failing across the alien fleet. Morrison led his squadron directly at the enemy flagship, dodging plasma bolts that could have vaporized his tiny craft. His modified missiles found their targets on the alien command ship's bridge section, causing critical systems to explode in brilliant flashes of light. Torres, brought his engineering vessel alongside a Zephyrian destroyer, and released a spread of specialized torpedoes that bypassed the alien hull armor to target internal systems. The massive enemy ship began listing to one side as its engines failed, and atmosphere vented from dozens of hull breaches. All vessels, evasive maneuvers, Krixtal ordered as he struggled to understand what was happening to his supposedly invincible fleet. Human fighters moved with incredible speed and agility, striking his ships and disappearing before his gunners could acquire targeting locks. Their weapons seemed designed specifically to exploit weaknesses in Zephyrian defensive systems. The battle that followed shattered every assumption Krixtal had held about human military capabilities. These were not the primitive warriors his intelligence reports had described. They fought with a coordination and tactical sophistication that reminded him of the most elite Zephyrian units. But they also displayed a reckless courage that his own species had never possessed. Morrison's fighter took a direct hit from a plasma cannon and began spinning out of control. Instead of attempting to save his damaged craft, the human pilot aimed directly at the bridge of the nearest Zephyrian cruiser and activated his ship's self-destruct system. The explosion tore through the alien vessel's command section and left it drifting helplessly in space. "Commander, we have lost 17 ships and our formation is breaking apart," his tactical officer reported with barely controlled panic. "The human vessels are too small and fast for our weapons to target effectively." Krixtal realized that his centuries of easy victories had not prepared him for an enemy that refused to fight according to established patterns. The humans used their numerical disadvantage as a tactical advantage, concentrating their entire force against selected targets while avoiding direct confrontation with his main battle groups. After 2 hours of brutal fighting, the Zephyrian fleet commander found himself in an impossible situation. His supposedly superior force had been reduced to fewer than 200 operational vessels, while the humans continued to attack with undiminished intensity. Even worse, reinforcements were arriving from other parts of the human star system as Earth's scattered fleet converged on the battle zone. "All ships, withdraw to minimum safe distance," Krixtal ordered through gritted teeth. "We will regroup and analyze human tactics before resuming the attack." As the alien fleet retreated, Admiral Crawford appeared on the communication screen again. "Commander Krixtal, you now have some understanding of human military capabilities. We offer you one final opportunity to withdraw from our system and return to your empire in peace." Krixtal felt rage building in his crystalline chest as he stared at the human who had just handed him his first military defeat in 2 centuries of conquest. "This battle is not over, human. We will return with reinforcements and crush your pathetic resistance. We will be waiting," Crawford replied simply before ending the transmission. Morrison floated in his escape pod watching the alien fleet withdraw toward the outer system. Around him, other human survivors were being recovered by rescue vessels. They had won the first battle, but everyone knew the real war was just beginning. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the newly commissioned human warship Defiant as it dropped out of hyperspace near the Zephyrian supply depot at Kepler Station. 3 months had passed since the first battle at Earth, and the war had taken a direction that no one in the galaxy had expected. Instead of defending their homeworld and waiting for the next alien attack, humanity had launched an immediate counteroffensive that was turning the entire conflict upside down. "Target acquired," reported Lieutenant Amy Davis from her tactical station. "Zephyrian convoy consists of 12 cargo vessels and 6 escort destroyers. They are maintaining standard formation and do not appear to have detected our approach." Morrison smiled grimly as he studied the tactical display. The humans had learned valuable lessons from every engagement with Zephyrian forces, and each new battle incorporated improvements that made their attacks more effective. Meanwhile, the aliens seemed unable to adapt their tactics or develop countermeasures against human, unconventional warfare. "All vessels, this is Defiant Leader," Morrison announced to his small task force. "Remember, we hit the escorts first, then disable the cargo ships. Intelligence indicates these supplies are destined for the main Zephyrian fleet, so destroying them will force their commander to divert resources for resupply operations." Intelligence. Operative Maria Rodriguez had spent weeks infiltrating Zephyrian communication networks to identify high-value targets throughout their empire. Her work had revealed that the aliens relied on predictable supply routes and scheduled deliveries that made perfect targets for human raiders. The Zephyrians had never needed to protect their logistics. because no enemy had ever survived long enough to threaten their rear areas. Dr. Sarah Mitchell monitored the attack from her position aboard the stealth ship Guardian. Her latest modifications to human weapons systems had created hybrid devices that combined captured Zephyrian technology with human tactical flexibility. The results were devastating against alien forces that had no defense against their own repurposed equipment. Initiating attack run, Morrison announced as his squadron moved into position. The human ships approached their targets using the same stealth modifications that had proven so effective in previous engagements. Chief Engineer Ryan Torres had refined the technology until human vessels could remain virtually invisible until they were close enough to launch their weapons. The Zephyrian escort commander never saw the attack coming. Human fighters appeared from empty space and immediately targeted the alien destroyers with precision strikes that crippled their engines and weapon systems. The convoy's defensive formation collapsed as escort vessels found themselves unable to maneuver or return fire effectively. Commander Vexakul of the Zephyrian Third Supply Fleet felt panic rising in his chest as he watched his escorts being systematically destroyed by an enemy that seemed to materialize from nowhere. His cargo vessels carried enough supplies to support major fleet operations for 6 months, but without escort protection they were helpless against the human raiders. All cargo ships, implement emergency scatter protocol, Vexakul ordered desperately. Transmit distress signals and request immediate military assistance. Morrison coordinated his attack with the cold efficiency that had become the hallmark of human military operations. His pilots disabled rather than destroyed the Zephyrian cargo vessels, then used boarding parties to capture intact alien technology and intelligence materials. Every raid provided valuable information about Zephyrian military capabilities and strategic planning. Defiant Leader, this is Boarding Team Alpha, reported Sergeant Mike Powell over the communication system. We have secured the alien cargo manifest and technical specifications for their new shield generators. This intelligence will be extremely valuable for our research teams. Dr. Mitchell received the captured data and immediately began analyzing Zephyrian technological developments. The aliens were finally starting to adapt their equipment to counter human tactics, but their efforts were too little and too late. Human scientists could reverse engineer and improve upon alien technology faster than the Zephyrians could develop new defenses. The psychological impact of constant human raids was beginning to show throughout Zephyrian space. Alien crews who had once served with absolute confidence now jumped at shadows and reported phantom contacts on their sensors. The empire that had ruled through fear and intimidation was experiencing terror for the first time in its history. Torres brought his engineering vessel alongside the largest Zephyrian cargo ship and began downloading technical schematics from their computer systems. The aliens had never developed proper information security because they had never faced an enemy capable of infiltrating their networks. Human hackers found their systems laughably easy to penetrate. Captain, we are detecting Zephyrian reinforcements approaching our position, Davis announced from her sensor station. 4 heavy cruisers and 8 destroyers. Estimated arrival in 20 minutes. Morrison felt the familiar rush of adrenaline that came with every engagement. The Zephyrians were finally learning to respond more quickly to human attacks, but they still relied on overwhelming force rather than tactical innovation. All vessels prepare for immediate departure. Load captured materials and prepare to jump to hyperspace on my signal. The human task force had completed its mission and withdrawn before the Zephyrian reinforcements could arrive. Morrison watched the alien fleet search desperately for his ships while remaining completely invisible, just a few thousand kilometers away. Human stealth technology had advanced to the point where entire fleets could operate undetected in enemy territory. Admiral Ben Crawford reviewed the mission, reports from dozens of similar raids occurring throughout Zephyrian space. Human forces now operated from hidden bases scattered across the galaxy, turning the aliens' own territory into hunting grounds for Earth's military. The Zephyrians found themselves fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere at the same time. Status report, Crawford requested as he entered the Strategic Planning Center aboard the mobile command ship Liberty. Sir, Operation Prometheus has been extremely successful, reported Colonel Lisa Barnes. Human task forces have conducted 47 raids in the past month with minimal casualties. Zephyrian supply lines are severely disrupted and their fleet commanders are reporting critical shortages of essential materials, Crawford studied the strategic display, showing human operations across Zephyrian territory. Red markers indicated successful raids, while blue markers showed the locations of hidden human bases. The network of secret facilities had grown exponentially as more alien worlds fell under human influence. Maria Rodriguez presented her latest intelligence findings with obvious satisfaction. "Admiral, we have confirmed that Zephyrian morale is collapsing throughout their empire. Alien crews are requesting transfers away from frontier duties, and several commanders have been relieved for refusing to patrol areas with heavy human activity." Dr. Mitchell activated a holographic display showing captured Zephyrian technology. "Sir, we have successfully reverse-engineered their quantum field generators and plasma containment systems. Our new hybrid weapons are 30% more effective than previous designs and require significantly less maintenance." Torres added his engineering assessment to the growing body of evidence that the war was turning in humanity's favor. "Admiral, Zephyrian industrial capacity is being stretched beyond its limits. They are producing replacement vessels as quickly as possible, but human raids are destroying ships faster than they can build them." Crawford realized that the Zephyrian Empire was experiencing something it had never encountered in 5 centuries of conquest. For the first time, they were fighting an enemy that grew stronger with each engagement, while their own forces became weaker and more demoralized. The aliens who had once inspired fear throughout the galaxy were now afraid of shadows that might hide human raiders. "Ladies and gentlemen, we have successfully transformed this conflict from a war of survival into a war of liberation," Crawford announced to his staff. "The Zephyrians came to Earth expecting to add another conquered species to their empire. Instead, they have awakened a force that will bring freedom to every world they have enslaved." Morrison received new orders directing his task force to rendezvous with resistance groups on former Zephyrian colony worlds. The aliens were discovering that their oppressed subjects had been waiting centuries for someone to show them that the Empire could be defeated. Human military advisors were now training liberation armies on dozens of worlds. Throughout Zephyrian space, the captain who had started this war defending his homeworld now found himself leading the fight to free an entire galaxy from alien tyranny. The Zephyrians had declared war on the deadliest species in the cosmos, and they were finally beginning to understand the true cost of that decision. Ambassador Veltar stood once again in the council chamber at United Earth headquarters, but everything had changed since his first visit 8 months earlier. The crystalline alien who had once delivered ultimatums with absolute confidence now trembled as he faced President Lisa Carter and Admiral Ben Crawford. His forearms shook visibly as he placed a formal document on the table between them. "President Carter, Admiral Crawford, I come before you today to offer the complete and unconditional surrender of the Zephyrian Empire," Veltar said through his translator device. "We request immediate cessation of hostilities and ask for your mercy in negotiating terms for peace." Captain Jake Morrison watched from his position near the window as the alien who had threatened to enslave humanity now begged for forgiveness. 8 months of war had transformed the balance of power in the galaxy beyond recognition. Human forces now controlled strategic positions throughout former Zephyrian territory, while liberation armies freed enslaved populations on hundreds of worlds. President Carter studied the surrender document with careful attention to detail. The terms offered by the Zephyrian Empire included complete withdrawal from human space, payment of massive reparations, and recognition of Earth's sovereignty over all territories claimed by humanity during the war. "Ambassador Veltar, your offer is noted, but I'm afraid the decision regarding peace terms will not be made by Earth alone." The alien's blue eyes flickered with confusion as he processed this unexpected response. "I do not understand. The Zephyrian Empire seeks peace with humanity. Surely you have the authority to accept our surrender and end this conflict." Admiral Crawford activated a holographic display that showed the current military situation throughout the galaxy. Red markers indicated worlds that had been liberated from Zephyrian control, while blue markers showed the locations of human military bases and allied forces. The display revealed that the former Zephyrian Empire had been reduced to less than 30% of its original territory. "Ambassador, the war you declared 8 months ago was not simply between Earth and your empire," Crawford explained patiently. "When you threatened to enslave humanity, you awakened something that your species had never encountered before. You created an alliance of free peoples who refused to live under tyranny." Dr. Sarah Mitchell entered the council chamber, carrying data tablets containing intelligence reports from across the galaxy. Her research teams had been working with liberation movements to document centuries of Zephyrian oppression and war crimes. The evidence filled thousands of files and painted a picture of systematic brutality that shocked even veteran human military officers. Mr. Ambassador, we have been in communication with representatives from 47 species that were enslaved by your empire. Dr. Mitchell announced. They have formed a provisional government called the Galactic Alliance of Free Worlds, and they will have the final say in determining what happens to the Zephyrian Empire. Veltar felt panic rising in his chest as he realized the true scope of what his empire faced. The humans had not simply defeated Zephyrian military forces. They had inspired a galaxy-wide revolution that threatened to destroy everything his species had built over 5 centuries of conquest. Chief Engineer Ryan Torres brought additional technical reports showing the extent of human technological advancement during the war. Captured Zephyrian equipment had been reverse-engineered and improved upon to create weapons and defensive systems that surpassed anything the aliens had ever developed. Ambassador, your empire's technological advantages no longer exist. Human and allied forces now possess superior equipment in every category. Intelligence operative Maria Rodriguez presented her analysis of the political situation throughout former Zephyrian space. Sir, we have confirmed that Zephyrian control has collapsed on over 2,000 worlds. Local populations have either expelled Imperial forces or joined liberation armies that are advancing toward the core systems of your empire. Morrison stepped forward to address the alien diplomat directly. Ambassador Veltar, 8 months ago you told us that resistance was futile because your empire had overwhelming military superiority. You were wrong about the nature of warfare itself. You thought that having bigger guns meant you would automatically win. But you never understood what makes soldiers fight. The captain gestured toward the holographic display showing human forces operating throughout the galaxy. Your species conquered through fear and intimidation, but you never learned how to inspire loyalty or courage in your followers. When your subjects realized that the Zephyrian Empire could be defeated, they turned against you faster than you could reinforce your garrisons. President Carter stood and walked to the large window overlooking Earth's blue sky and white clouds. Ambassador, the Galactic Alliance has requested that Earth serve as mediator in negotiating the final terms of peace. However, I must inform you that the representatives of freed worlds are not interested in simply accepting your surrender and returning to the previous status quo. Veltar felt desperation creeping into his voice as he responded. What do they want from us? The Zephyrian Empire is prepared to make any reasonable concession to end this war and restore peace to the galaxy. Admiral Crawford brought up detailed reports from the Alliance Negotiating Committee. The freed worlds want justice for 5 centuries of oppression. They want guarantees that the Zephyrian Empire will never again threaten the freedom of other species. Most importantly, they want your military forces completely dismantled and your weapons technology transferred to Alliance control. Dr. Mitchell added her assessment of the technological requirements for a lasting peace. Ambassador, the Alliance has agreed that former Zephyrian worlds can maintain independence if they adopt democratic governments and submit to regular inspections to ensure they are not rebuilding military capabilities. Torres presented engineering plans for converting Zephyrian industrial facilities to peaceful purposes. Your shipyards and weapons factories will be converted to produce civilian goods and infrastructure for worlds damaged during centuries of Imperial rule. Your technical knowledge will be used to benefit all species in the galaxy, rather than enslaving them. Maria Rodriguez delivered the final piece of the Alliance's demands. Mr. Ambassador, the Galactic Alliance requires that all Zephyrian war criminals be surrendered for trial by the species they oppressed. This includes military commanders, political leaders, and anyone who participated in genocide or slavery operations. Veltar realized that his empire faced complete transformation rather than simple defeat. The humans and their allies were not interested in conquest or revenge. Instead, they wanted to create a new galactic order based on freedom and cooperation, rather than fear and oppression. I will convey these terms to Emperor Kexthul, Veltar said quietly. However, I must warn you that many Zephyrians will never accept such comprehensive changes to our civilization. President Carter turned back to face the alien ambassador. With the same calm determination she had shown 8 months earlier. Ambassador, your empire has 2 choices. You can accept these terms and become part of a free galaxy, or you can continue fighting and face complete destruction. The choice is yours, but the days of Zephyrian tyranny are over. As Veltar prepared to leave Earth for the final time, he reflected on the irony of the situation. His empire had come to enslave a primitive species, and instead had awakened the deadliest force in the galaxy. The humans had not simply defeated the Zephyrian Empire, they had created something new and unprecedented in galactic history. A civilization based on the principle that all intelligent species deserved freedom and dignity. Captain Morrison stood on the observation deck watching the alien transport depart for Zephyrian space. Around him, children from dozens of liberated worlds played together in the gardens surrounding United Earth headquarters. The galaxy was finally free, and humanity had taken its place as the guardian of that freedom for all species among the stars. The war that began with an ultimatum to surrender had ended with the birth of a new galactic civilization. The Zephyrians had declared war on the deadliest species in the cosmos and discovered too late that human deadliness came not from their weapons or their ships, but from their absolute refusal to live as slaves or to allow others to suffer in bondage.